This is Nate calling in from Ohio. Nate, we're going to give you just a couple minutes here, and then we got to wrap things up. What's going on?
Cool. Thanks, guys. Well, before I get started, really quick, I noticed that one of the previous callers said Moses dealt in Royal Egyptian cubits.
Yeah.
Moses didn't build the ark. That was Noah.
Yeah.
So that kind of made me chuckle.
Yeah.
Also the image of God. I noticed that has nothing to do with creation. The Hebrew word for image is definitely a visual word in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
And God was going around blowing in nostrils, and he attempted to murder Moses, and he wrestled Jacob, and he has a butt that Moses looked at.
Yeah.
So, image means physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to. I'm really getting pissed off lately at what's going on, especially in Tennessee now. Trans people have a year now to detransition, and it's getting a little out of hand. So when the religious right is on top, historically speaking, they're aggressive because they kind of have a manifest destiny sort of thing going on, right?
Yeah.
And when they're in declining numbers, they're aggressive because, religious liberty is under attack. They're like Wolverines backed into an imaginary corner.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, like when there's
persecution complex, and it makes these people persecute themselves in imaginary self-defense.
Yeah. This is
so no matter where they're at, they're aggressive.
You're right.
So make people think they're being bullied, and they will be bullies themselves.
Yeah.
And we try to be nice to them because we actually do believe in religious freedom, including theirs. But it's starting to get really rancid, and we need a smackdown. And I don't know what we need to do. Should we risk our tenuous image to get aggressive back? Because it's bad. I know the ACLU in Tennessee is doing some good work on this, but
yeah.
What do we do, guys?
It's a shame we only have a few minutes to talk about this because there's a lot to be said. But Kara, I definitely want you to talk about this first.
Oh yeah, I mean we could do a whole episode on this.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can do it justice in a few minutes, but I agree with your concern completely that it has gotten out of hand. It is aggressive, and when we're talking about people who are this intent on taking away other people's rights and everything like that. These are people oftentimes who are following what they consider to be, biblical law and everything like that. And that book is not written in a way that, in my opinion, is consistent with democratic values. So kind of to your point about, when people with this belief system get on top, they hurt other people and they do not actually promote things like freedom of religion. I think you're exactly right, because that is not what, the law of the Old Testament promotes. It is not promoting freedom of religion. It's promoting there's one God and you'll have no God before me. When people say things like, oh, our country was founded on the 10 Commandments. Well, that's a completely false statement that nothing could be further from the truth. If you look at the Constitution of the United States, this is intended to be a democratic republic, and that is not the form of government that is advocated for in the Bible, as far as my reading of it goes. So that's my first concern when people are wanting to implement that. It is not consistent with our democratic values. And yes, I think that is something that needs to be pushed back on. I think that, part of what happens at the ACA is pushing back in a way that is directed more towards changing minds or having dialogue and conversation, as Jesus was just encouraging us to do on the previous call.
Right.
I think that is an important part of pushing back, is actually having the dialogue in a way that is possible to have the dialogue rather than just yelling past each other. I think there is value in having actual conversations back and forth. So that's one thing that I think is extremely important. But also I understand your other point, which is that there are people right now who are being put in actual harm's way due to some of the policies that are being promoted in certain states and certain places in the country. And I also share that concern.
Logic just bounces off these people. You can't talk sense to them at all.
Yeah.
They're aggressive and emotional and are not interested in having a reasonable back and forth whatsoever.
Yeah. Nate,
They're just using force.
I agree. When you look at the history of social changes, differences in social power, when black people were given equal rights in this country, that didn't come without riots. That didn't come without, action happening on the street. Like the Civil War, obviously people say, oh, it's states' rights. And it's slavery, right? That's a power differential that's happening. I mean, a lot of civil upheavals come from different political powers changing in power. And the truth is, trans people in particular, the LGBT community at large, has been given more power, has been given more representation, has been given more legitimacy in our society. And that's a change in a power dynamic. And so there is a response to that. I don't know whether that means it leads to violence. I can't advocate for violence anyway, because this is a production of a nonprofit organization. But what I can say is that I'm going to try to do my best with what I can right now, which is hosting shows like this one, which is talking to people about this stuff, because people they do change their minds. And sometimes it just takes a while and they're really annoying. And it's like, oh my God, you're so stupid. And you think these things, but really people are just stubborn too, right? It's just like, you have to sometimes let that happen naturally, because if it's forced, if you just say, no, you gotta do this, like, people also reject that. They're like, well, why are you shoving down this LGBT stuff down my throat? Well, I don't think that's right. And it's, it's just like,
Yeah.
It's constantly in flux, right? It's a hard relationship to balance. But yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that's all I can say about it, really. Well, I mean, we'll always, of course, be in support, and we'll try to do our best. But I think that's all we can do. Nate, I'm sorry to cut you short, but we really are out of time here. Thanks so much for calling in and doing that. And by the way, when I say also shelving stuff LGBT, I mean, like that. What they mean by that is just, I'm seeing a gay character on TV.
Yes.
It's literally like nothing bad. Like, that's obviously a good thing. They just they're not used to that, and it scares them, right?
Yes, exactly. It's
yeah.
It's not hurting them in any way.
Yeah.
It's just literally not wanting to see the existence of other people.
Right. And also the respect given when you legitimize and respect those communities. That's another form of power, right? That's another form of recognition within the society, as opposed to not being spoken of at all.
Well, exactly, because it suggests that people don't have to follow this moral code.
Yeah.
Other people don't have to follow your made-up rules, and that's the thing that people sometimes get pretty upset about.
Right. It's unfortunate.